The national leader, Dr. Al Sharpton, led a march through the streets of Washington today, and the Washington Post didn't say anything about it at all. These marches in themselves are problematic. In the cold, in the rain, the organizing starts, and the backdrop is on next week. A president that was elected by the lowest turnout in history, some less than 80,000 votes, propelled DJ Trump into the presidency or as the president-elect. Dr. Sharpton told the crowd today that Trump was elected by a minority of people, which is correct, both factually and legally. But the Trump cabinet is not reflective of America, and it cannot be reflective of America with billionaires, millionaires, old white men, as one would say, one colored person there. But that is not the end of the story. The story is, as Dr. Sharpton correctly points out, it's not DJ Trump. It's the party that propelled him there, the Republican Party. The party that the Koch brothers of Wichita, Kansas, now of Los Angeles, Palm Springs, and Palm Beach, Florida, spent billions of dollars to elect local legislators and local governments to set the policy point, as one would say, to set these draconian laws out there that suppress the votes under the regime of Boss Walker in Wisconsin, and in particular in Milwaukee, in North Carolina, and many states that line up. And not only is this thing contagion within the Republican Party, which is the most right-of-center Republican Party we've had. The last time we've had this type of party was the so-called Shining City on the Hill, with Ronald Wilson Reagan and his Birch supporters. You don't hear them anymore. The John Birch Society out of California went to Pittsburgh, Mississippi, opened his campaign where the civil rights workers were brutally murdered. But this regime here is not on the backs of Goodman and company there in Mississippi. It's on the backs of Trayvon Martin, of Michael Brown, of Eric Garner on Long Island. These people that were brutally killed by these police regimes, the types of regimes that the Justice Department on Friday pointed out in Chicago. That is the blood that's on the hands of these various types. These organizations, police organizations, support DJ Trump and Beauregard Sessions, who would be the most right-wing type to literally sit behind the desk at the Department of Justice in modern history. It's an unfortunate situation. It's a combination of many things. But it's also reflective of a political prison set up in this country. That we have the likes of the Twitter King out of the urban ghetto of Newark, New Jersey, Cory Booker, voting against an amendment that would have provided inexpensive generic drugs from Canada and various places to the American public. This is a character running around masquerading as a progressive. He does not deserve your vote. The only thing he deserves is a kick in his ass. But you have many of these people out here. And I noticed in the Root paper, which is blog, is owned by the Washington Post, some character, I forget his name, doesn't matter, saying, "Shut up, Bernie." Well, he shouldn't be disrespectful Bernie should slap him upside his head a couple of times or have somebody do it for him. The point is, you'll hear these characters out here blaming the election loss on Bernie Sanders, on V.I. Putin, on who knows, little Trump perhaps. That's Trump's 10-year-old son. He'll be the next person they claim that did it. But the problem was the centric Democrats who have outlived their usefulness. Thus went down, as they say, in not so much of a blaze of glory, period. But at the same time were able to amass almost 3 million votes. That was not to their policies, that was to certain exuberance in some states, which tells you right away that the objective American politic is fickle at best. There are all kinds of schisms or trends running through it. You have these corporate Democrats like Twitter King within the Democratic Party, and of course you have the Bernie Sanders of the world out there. But this character, I forget what his name is here, it really doesn't matter, was talking about, will Bernie run in 2020? Well, we don't know. Obviously, in 2020, we're in 2017 at this point in time. Bernie is 74, almost 75 years old. Bernie could very well run. But this is not about Bernie Sanders. It's about people like Bernie Sanders. We need more people like that. We need less of Twitter kings. He needs to go and retire with Two-Ton Christie, wherever people like those characters go. Those are not the kind of people who are going to fight with this regime that's coming up, the Trump 16th Street gang. They are coming. Their supporters, the Republican Party, in the House, on the little Paulie Ryan, and then on the Senate, on the old sellout McConnell, have went about decapitating the Affordable Care Act, which means they're decapitating health care in the United States. They are not replacing it with anything tangible. The U.S. is the only industrialized country in the world that does not have a national health care system, period. Now, we understand that China at one time did have a very good health care system. It's tenuous, but this is what the dagger of capitalism will do to you. Adjustments obviously have to be made in a delivery. We look at a small island like Cuba that has one of the best healthcare systems in the world. And many other countries that don't have the resources of the U.S. have much better medical systems. The medical workers are trained properly. Now the U.S., yes, has some gadgetry, but the problem is with much of the gadgetry, how many lives does it save? Well, it saves a few. Obviously, that is a situation. It's sort of like many of the jobs are being talked about will be created by the DJ Trump regime. Yes, he will create jobs. He has a stimulus there, which is basic Keynesian economics, but that tells you the economy is in trouble or you wouldn't need a stimulus. The Japanese use the same thing to get out of what they called deflation. 10 years of deflationary situation there. But with the jobs created for the next, we'll say, 360 days, the next 2 years perhaps, what will happen after that? And in the process, companies like Amazon are creating jobs. Companies like Macy's are making people redundant or laying people off. And at the same time, voting rights laws are being gutted. The rights of people are being gutted. Even the monopoly press is being abused by DJ Trump. Now, you'd say this doesn't matter. You have CNN there, a very opportunistic network, the network that O.J. Simpson built. Yes. But the problem is, if they can do it to CNN, they'll do it to NBC, CBS, these monopoly characters, and then they'll work their way down the block, and they'll finally get to the root, literally. So this is the old situation. The professor, Dr. Dyson, was talking about that, the example of the rat and the various other people in the barnyard. The rat seeing the trap, and the trap was set, and the other characters, pig, cow, etc., said it was not their problem. But when the snake evidently bit the woman, and the woman went to the doctor, she needed chicken soup, and that didn't work out very well. Then they needed to take care of the pig, and the woman died, and I suppose they were having a big feed, as they would call it. I suppose that's the language to use. And they killed the cow. So that tells you they moved from one to the other. Next week, the black lung benefits of miners in West Virginia and Kentucky is on the chopping block with the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. Next, it will be the medical centers that will be on the chopping block. They'll be making redundancies because of the lack of money they will receive. Period. As this so-called Medicaid money is sent back to states like Alabama, the headquarters of Beauregard Sessions. They will literally just split the money up to a few of these for-profit medical centers, and the people will be standing in line trying to get free handouts, sample drugs, etc. That is not a healthcare system. That is folly. And these are the kinds of things that happen. And at the same time, you'll see other parts of the right wing applauding that Planned Parenthood centers are closed down because of, quote unquote, the abortions. That is very little of their work. Probably about 20% of their work. They're about the health care of women. But these zealots see nothing else with the blinders on. Period. The Medicare system itself is on the chopping block, and so is Social Security. They will raise the ages. They will try to put in the privatized option for people 50 and perhaps even 55. They'll have their choice. They'll play it up, and the suckers will get in the system, and then the market will go down. And I was talking with a lady that got into one of these 401k operations with the post office and lost 50% of her retirement. Now, at one time, the post office had what was called a defined pension plan. In other words, when you did your 20 or 30 years, you'd get a set amount of money for life. But then came a 401 type, K-type system, where you'd contribute $1 and the post office would contribute $1, $2, whatever. Same situation that IBM ended up. They had to define a pension plan. Remember when the workers called upon us to help them out, and we tried to litigate it to no avail. So the defined pension plan disappeared, and in came the 401 type plan. At that time, I believe IBM was donating $2 for every dollar that the worker put forth, or perhaps it was free. Then it got down to 1-to-1. But the worker had to have the dollar to donate. That is the whole moral of the story. That these people tend to be economic opportunists when there's no opportunity there. It's just as China is now having an export problem. Less exports they're trying to sell to the world. Germany is trying to sell to the world. There's just not enough demand out there. So you can create all the shovel-ready jobs that you want. Those jobs are very, very temporary. Yes, they have a multiplier effect, but it's a temporary effect. It's like you're building a football stadium, and wherever the workers come from, they will go back in their communities and spend the money. But when the 2 years are over or whatever, those workers no longer have those jobs. And on to some of these schemes that they're coming up with, like the one in Kentucky, you won't have the prevailing wage there, which is $20 to $30. You'll be able to get about 50% less than that for the state jobs. So the workers working on the future stadiums of the world will not necessarily get that. That's the Hill-Burton Act. So in other words, those kinds of things are coming in there. and it is a material world there. We're not talking about some spiritual scheme. We are not talking about the argument about with Davis in Kentucky, same-sex weddings, or which bathroom you're going to use. You'll be lucky to find a bathroom. So those are the kinds of tangible things Dr. Sharpton was talking about, leading this march, standing out there in the rain, talking about the fight back, going to see various congressional functionaries, whether they be in the House or be in the Senate, to call those characters up if you can't get there. But if Dr. Sharpton can walk in the rain and the rest of the people, the head of the NAACP, one of the most brilliant trial lawyers in America, Dr. Brooks, he won the largest settlement ever in a civil rights litigation, was there. Mr. Morrell used to be the mayor of New Orleans. Now he is the CEO of the Urban League, not hardly a radical organization. And the other people that were there, Mr. Robinson of Color of Change, these people are constantly fighting. Glenn Carr, the mother of Mr. Garner, out there, Sabrina Williams. These people understand what fighting is and struggle. You're not going to do it in one march, or as Dr. Sharpton say, a parade. You can have a parade and have 1 million people there and get nothing done. That is a problem. Next week we'll have the Million Women March. There will no doubt be hundreds of thousands of people will come in on the day after DJ Trump moves into the White House. And he'll be over there with his pen about to run out of ink, signing so-called executive orders. We won't hear anything about overreaching. That is what political consultants call a flippable. But one thing Dr. Sharpton did today was put on notice the private sector. Those people that would support the Trump operation are at the same time using very similar tactics. We have organizations, say like Samsung, that supply the headsets, the mobile phones, smartphones, etc., to communities of color, but yet they do not employ people of color in sufficient numbers. We have Facebook in Silicon Valley. People of color are not represented there, particularly African Americans and Latinos, in the numbers that they use the products. The same way with Google and the various others. They're just too many to be mentioned, and how they handle quote-unquote reseller programs, those that even have reseller programs. And many of the local people that work in these various developmental ecosystems, whether they're developing the software for iOS, that's the Mac platform, or the Android platform, or for Google, machine learning, etc. That's the so-called high-tech factor. They'll be talking about high-tech, robotics, self-driving cars. Looking at a picture today of a self-driving bus in Sin City, as they call it, Las Vegas. And it is literally taking people up and down the thoroughfares there. You will have more and more self-driving buses, self-driving rail cars out there. Uber is moving as quickly as possible on self-driving Uber cars. So the gig economy will be run by robots. Yes, there will be some people there, but it will be fewer and fewer. I could imagine that in the first year you'll have maybe 10% fewer human drivers, 20%. And as things in technology, and then within a year or so, 40%, 50, 60%, and it jumps to the point where you probably have only 25 to maybe about 15 and 10% actual drivers there. And the only reason you'll have those that haven't got the self-driving cars there yet. But as they produce more and more self-driving cars, they become much more efficient in terms of costs. So, for instance, if a self-driving car is $30,000, as they build more and more of those units, excuse me, they drop to $25,000, $20,000, and then perhaps even between $25,000 20 and 15,000. The upkeep is less because they are electrical, and they get to be much more cost effective. So those jobs would disappear. And on the other end of the spectrum, we see that right now in much of the so-called new type of programming in iOS and in Android. Incidentally, we have a program also called the Open Source Report, where we talk about the future of open source software. But we now have programs that are programmable. In other words, the programs program themselves. And much of what you see, this is called machine learning there, and that in itself is a new challenge, because more and more of these programs will program themselves, and at the same time we're starting to see the end of many of these apps. So people that are literally doing quote-unquote apps, whether it be for the Mac platforms, excuse me, the iPhones, or the Android phones, there will be less of that as we moved, say, from programs which we used to have on desktops to more quote-unquote apps, and then you will have general-purpose apps, and the algorithms themselves will change. So you'll see companies that have an app now, for instance, Reuters or whatever. There'll be multiple apps there, as on iHeart, where we are now. You can select your music, download it, and you don't have to use your bandwidth. So in other words, there are different ways of reaching people. We have satellite, and we have more and more of the outlets that are moving towards a satellite system. In other words, you will not have to be at a desktop computer. You can be at your smartphone. You can get us, incidentally, on iHeart, on Spreaker, on various other platforms. Switcher, it's a mobile platform. It's been very kind to us there, and we appreciate all those mobile users. So you're getting this in its entirety, and on some outlets you'll get an edited version of this. This is a little over an hour, plus hour, about 20 minutes. So it's a fairly long commentary. We start out with Dr. Sharpton and various other people in between. It is edited, but you will get basically the idea of the march and the information that is there. What we want you to do is take advantage of the information, call up or email these various senators and representatives, or posts on whatever platform you're on. They will get the message. And so will old DJ Trump. He reads everything on his little Twitter feed there. He may have millions, but he only has several thousand that are active every day. And his eyes are flashing across it. Don't think he's not. He's not a dummy. Now, the other Republicans, many of those people think they're in the driver's seat. Even old Karl Rove had some words, I would guess, for those that are going to work in the White House. In other words, don't be arrogant there. You're there for a short period of time. You could be there for 4 years or 8 years or 2 years. It would depend how the clock is running. But in the case of this administration, as we said last night on or this morning on the week that was, that normally the first 100 days, this thing is more the first 100 minutes, because much of the legislation, the bulk of it, is running towards DJ Trump's pen at this very moment. And then you'll have executive orders to take care of some of the other stuff. So in other words, after the first 30 days, the first 2 weeks of his administration, much of the heavy lifting will be done. What will be left? Well, that is sheer speculation, because if you have shovel-ready jobs, they have to pass a budget. They'll have to come up with the money somewhere. The claim is they're going to get it from the private sector. Well, they're not going to get it from the private sector. They're going to get it the way that Lockheed and the rest of them get their money. That's from the Federal Treasury. Nonetheless, this is special programming with our numbers man unit and with our open source report, which is our technical unit, all thrown in to one. This will air on Sunday or on Saturday evening on some of our outlets. Have a good weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you on the Monday Morning Quarterback or on the Numbers Man or on the Open Source Report. Good day.
We will not be moved. That millennials, that adults, that indigenous people, that immigrants are working together, standing together in unity, pushing the message of the second wave of the civil rights movement and the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King and the spirit of Ida B. Wells and the spirit of Shirley Chisholm and so many great people. And so today, we need to understand that it's not just Donald Trump that we have to worry about, because all politics are local. And so you have to find it within yourself after today to go back home and to keep up the fight for 4 years. For 4 years. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and protect each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Thank you.
He is the liberation seeker. He is the people's preacher. He is the founder and the president of the National Action Network, and he is the one who called us to be here today to send a message for those that will come tomorrow. Let us receive at this time the president and founder of the National Action Network, the man called for this day, this moment, and this hour, Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton. No justice. No peace. No justice. No justice. No justice. What do we want? What do we want? What do we want? When do we want it? 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 We won't go back. We won't. 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 All right. We are gathered here and we've marched in the driving rain because we want this nation to understand that what has been fought for and gained, that you're going to need more than one election to turn it around. We've called this march on 4 non-negotiable issues: voting rights, criminal justice and police reform, equal and fair economic justice, and the Affordable Care Act. We come to Washington from all over this country. They're going to lie tomorrow and say it wasn't but 200 of us, but look at this crowd in the rain. We come not to appeal to Donald Trump, because he's made it clear what his policies are and what his nominations are. We come to say to the Democrats in the Senate and in the House and into the moderate Republicans to get some backbone, get some guts. We didn't send you down here to be weak-kneed and get in the room and try to make friends. We sent you down here to stand up for senior citizens, to stand up for students that can't pay their loans, to stand up for victims of police abuse. If you can't do the job, then we'll come here and bring you back home. We are not going to compromise on those 4 things. what we must do. Tomorrow there's action all over the country. Then, as we see the votes on confirmation, I'm taking a list today of you that are ready. We are going to go to senators' offices, and we are going to visit them right before the votes for Mr. Sessions. We need to make some house calls. We need to stay a little while. And we need to stay in their office while they on the floor voting here. Because Dr. King died fighting for these rights. That's why we came to the King Memorial. Mrs. Coretta Scott King, who used to speak at National Action Network every year, wrote a letter saying that Sessions shouldn't be on the federal bench. We owe it to her to have a roll call on those that would put him in the Justice Department. You're not getting a pass. We want the world to see if you sell us out, we're going to let everybody know who you are. When we look at the fact that in the confirmation hearing, no one raised while he was sitting there when he said he supported vote ID. Well, if you support vote ID, why did you allow 37 motor vehicle places in Alabama where they could get their ID? They closed them right after the Supreme Court decision. 8 of the 10 top black counties closed them. You didn't say anything about it, Senator. You cannot be the head of the Justice Department and protect voters when you advocate suppressing the vote and blocking the vote. You said that you were against federal intervention and federal people getting involved in local cases, where this week alone we saw a consent decree in Baltimore, a report in Chicago. All of that he would stop. We are not here because we didn't have something else to do. We're here because we fought hard to make sure that this administration heard our cry, and we are not going away now. Criminal justice and police reform must go forward. Let me say this. I saw on the front page of the Washington Post this morning about the case of Arizona. I thought about how in this Justice Department is the case of Walter Scott, shot in the back on video, where there's a federal case. All of this movement, the re-enlivening of it, the revival of it, started when a young boy with nothing but Skittles and an iced tea in his hand was going home to his daddy, and he was shot down, and they wouldn't even arrest the assailant. And some of us went to Sanford, Florida, and stood up for Trayvon Martin, and we're going to stand up for Eric Garner, and we're going to stand up for Walter Scott, and we're going to stand up for Tamir Rice. You may switch presidents, but we just going to switch legs and keep on marching. We won't back down. We won't be trumped. We won't be trumped. We won't be trumped.
We won't be trumped. We won't be trumped. We won't be trumped. We won't be trumped. We won't be trumped.
I want you to join me in welcoming to the stage the courageous face of these movements, the mother of Trayvon Martin, Sabrina Fulton, the mother of Eric Garner, Gwen Carr, and the brother Walter Scott. They came and marched with us today. We will not be moved. Let's hear. You know, the media likes to put out their friends and say, oh, this person speaks for the movement. We work with the families that have suffered. We've been with Sabrina from the beginning. We still there. We've been with Eric Garner. We still there. We've been with Walter Scott, and we're going to be there to the end. Where's Carrie Weiss? Carrie Weiss was one of the young men that Donald Trump took ads and said that he should be executed for Central Park. We marched for him. We stood for him. He went to jail for something he didn't do and was finally exonerated after 13 years in jail. Couldn't get a job. So we gave him a job at Nash Action Network. We still here. Carrie Weiss, one of the Central Park Five. We know how to fight Trump. Carrie Weiss is an example of how we gonna fight. A man shot and killed with a question of mentality in San Diego, California. Albert Alongo, his father joins us. Richard Alongo. These are the cases that we want the Senate to make sure they have backbone to deal with. I want to hear from the families. Then we're going to hear from one of the members of the Senate. A couple have come with us today. Then my colleagues in civil rights leadership are here. So we don't want you to think that you came all this distance just for a parade. A lot of folks have parades and call it a march. We lay out what we're going to do. It's house calls. How many of y'all ready to make house calls? How many of y'all ready for the day to go in and have a session on session at your senator's office? We want to break it down state by state. Call it sessions for session. Then we also, and I'm going to wait for Mark on this, we're calling a summit since the public sector has been closing on us. We need to select in the private sector the companies that are violating our principles, and we are going to have a national withdrawal of our dollars. And we're going to make sure the private sector balances out the public sector. So if you're going to cut us off in Washington, we're going to cut you off at home. Mother of Trayvon Martin, Sabrina Fulton.
I want to say that I stand with Rev because he stood with me. We shall not be moved. Although it was my son, Trayvon Martin, that was shot and killed back in February 26, 2012, I want you to have the same compassion for me as if it was your child. It's so very important that we look out for our young people because they can't defend themselves. And so I continue this fight because my son was shot down and it made me stand up. So won't you stand with us? Won't you go back to your community and stand up and make a difference in your community? Thank you and God bless you.
The mother of Eric Garner, Miss Gwen Carr.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you all for being here. You know we all need to be here. This is the first step. This is not the end. This is the beginning. When we leave here, we have work to do. Like at National Action Network, I thank them so very much for standing with us. They stand with us when the lights are on and when they go out. A lot of you, when you go back to your homes, it'll be like nothing happened. We can't do that. We have to stand. There are things that are at stake that we have to address. Our voting rights. We must not embarrass our forefathers by letting them take away our voting rights. That's the most powerful weapon that we have. And we will not stand by quietly why they manipulate the voting rights. Our forefathers died. Our blood, our forefathers' blood is on that bill. And we must uphold them. And our civil rights, the right to a living wage. We shouldn't have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to get the minimum basics for our families. Everyone deserves a living wage. Why do they think that we are any less? The 67 million who's getting less than the minimum wage, less than a living wage. We don't want the minimum wage. We want a living wage. Okay? And we want for the women. The women is getting paid 67 cents to every dollar that a man is making. Why? We do the best work. So we should get paid accordingly. Okay? And the police reform, we must remember, we must demand the way that our communities is being policed. We have to have a better standing there. We must demand that they respect human life better than they do. We must demand that they community sentences for the people with these low crimes, and they're keeping them in jail doing 2 and 3 lifetimes for what? Yes, so we have to stand together on this. And Obamacare, that was his pet project. We cannot let that be abolished. We will not stand here and say, oh, let them take it. No. We lost an election. We didn't lose our mind, okay? So we're going to stand up, and we're going to push back, and we're going to tell our senators, our councilmen, the minorities, you stand with us if you want our vote, all right? And I thank y'all so much.
We all saw the video of Walter Scott. A man shot in his back, running away. The Sunday after he was shot, I went to North Charleston with Reverend Rivers, and we had a prayer vigil at that spot. The man that we had lead us in prayer was Reverend Pinckney, who 2 months later was one of the 9 killed in his church in Charleston. It's too much going on to play games with the Justice Department. In the Justice Department is the case of Walter Scott. This family, just like the Garner family, has advocated nothing but asking for justice. They've not called for one word of hate, not one act of violence. The question, Mr. Trump, is not how we act. The question is how y'all gonna act about justice. How you gonna act to people that stand up and make America great. When you can see people mowed down in a church and Bible class and turn and forgive the killer, that's what makes people great. talking loud, saying nothing, tweeting in the middle of the night don't make you great. Great is when you can look hate in the face and refuse to hate and become like the hater. I bring you the brother of Walter Scott, Rodney Scott.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the youngest brother of Walter Scott, and my mother unfortunately couldn't be here today. She wanted to be here, but her health caused her not to be here. But it's not over, just like you just said. It's not over until it's over. We sat in a courtroom for 7 weeks looking for justice, being peaceful about it. But I don't know about you, but I'm tired of being peaceful. I'm tired of justice not being served to all people, all mankind. And of course, we're going to have to do it again. We have trial again in March. And we'd like for your support again to be there for me and my family. Because we want justice, and we're going to stand together. And like my mother said, it's not over until God says it's over. And thank you again, the Scott family.
Let us hear from Richard Alongo, the father of Albert Alongo, San Diego, California.
Hello? 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 Are you guys awake? Are you awake? I should say that when I say Arambe, you also say Arambe. 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 Okay. When my son was shot in San Diego by Richard Gonzalez, a war has been declared. A war has been declared on humanity. Battle line has been drawn. And when we are fighting, there is no coldness. It is cold, but we have to move forward. We are not going to move backward. My son was killed because of his black skin. He should not have been shot. That police officer, if he wanted only to destabilize my son, he would have shot him 1 bullet. But he shot him 5 bullets. He was determined to kill. We don't have militarized police. We don't have military police. In fact, I get cut because I get very annoyed when I remember how my son was killed. Because I brought my son to look for protection, security, and justice, and safety. And when I brought my son to America to look for justice, the country where I came to look for justice is where my son was killed. It is a very big contradiction. I don't understand it. We have to fight, and we must be ready to fight. Join us and fight. We fight to win. We shall win. Arambe! 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 Thank you.
Arambe! One senator who has stood up, who's committed to the fight, and has said he will not vote against the interests of the people of this country, who's marched with us today, the United States Senator from Oregon, Senator Merkley. Give him a hand.
What do we want? What do we want it? What do we want? When do we, what? I know that you're all willing to march in the cold, but are you willing to march up to Capitol Hill? Are you willing to talk justice to power? Are you willing to say to the powerful, we want the end of racial profiling?
We want the end of mass incarceration. We want health care, quality health care, affordable health care for every American. You know, Martin Luther King said there's a dark and desolate valley, but we must go to the sunlit path of justice. Are you ready to go on that path? What are the first three words of our Constitution? We the people. It's not we the powerful. What is it? It's not we the privileged. It's we the people. So let's march out to Capitol Hill and go to every Senate office and demand that we want that sunlit path of justice for every American. Thurgood Marshall, up on the Supreme Court, the first African American to serve, he said, we must not say it's okay to have indifference. He said, there is a better path, a better America. Let's fight for that better America. I'm proud to stand with you. Thank you.
Senator Merkley, give him a hand. As I bring on my civil rights, national civil rights leader colleagues, let me first go home and bring the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, Mayor Ras Baraka.
No justice! No justice! No justice! We are down here all the way from Newark, New Jersey, and I know Newark is in the house. Because all 300,000 of us stand with Reverend Al Sharpton and National Action Network here today to say we shall not be moved. We are here some 50 years later after Martin Luther King brought many of us down here to cash a check that was marked insufficient funds. And we're still here 50 years later trying to cash that same check. We're still here trying to get what we deserve in this place. And we're here to tell them that we shall not be moved. America is not great because of Donald Trump. America is great only because millions of people fought to end slavery. America is only great because Mamie Till stood with her son's body after he was dragged out of the Tallahatchie River to show the world that we would defeat Jim Crow. America is only great because Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney were killed in Mississippi trying to destroy segregation in the South. America is only great because workers fought and died for an 8-hour day and an increase in the minimum wage. America is only great because we marched these streets, because we shed our blood, because we didn't sit down in the face of tyranny, in the face of oppression. America is only great because the people have made it great. And I'm gonna sit down, but I'm not a part of a minority. I'm a part of the majority. The majority of Americans want an increase in the minimum wage. The majority of Americans want criminal justice reform. The majority of Americans want affordable health care. The majority of Americans want free or affordable college. The majority of Americans want criminal justice reform. And the majority of Americans did not vote for Donald Trump. I stand with the majority, not the minority. I did not lose. I won. My God is not a loser. My God is a winner. And I stand with those who won. Victory to the oppressed. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win.
Ras Baraka. Reverend Steffi Bartlett must have taught you that last piece. Where's Reverend Steffi? All right. He teaches them how to preach a little. To bring on our national civil rights leaders, and they're all here from Cornell Brooks to Rashad Robinson and others as United Front, then our labor leaders. I want to bring the chairman of our board, the senior pastor of Grace Baptist Church, that will introduce each of them. And then we will have J. David Cox and our labor leaders, and we've got to warm up to get you home from the one and only Reverend Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, Reverend W. Franklin Richardson.
We certainly want to celebrate the leadership of Reverend Sharpton, the founder of the National Action Network and president. Let's give him some love as he has provided leadership for this. I'm glad to be here to join all of us as we've come across the country to be a part of this important statement of our rejection of what appears to be policies that are designed to hold us back. This is the first time in the last 30 years where the cabinet will not look like America. All billionaires and millionaires, all white men, with the exception of one white woman and one colored man. And this is the first time in the history of America where we have the first Russian president of the United States of America. So it is important that the African American community is not silent, but that we stand. That's why this march is important. There will be other marches, but this march is important because we as a community are standing up and saying we shall not be moved. We will not turn back the clock. The National Action Network is grateful to have our partners in civil rights to join us. We understand that the cause of civil rights cannot be handled by any one single organization, but a collaboration of people who have a cause and a heart for justice. Today we have this wonderful cadre of outstanding civil rights leaders who have joined the National Action Network. One of our partners is one who is leading with great clarity, precision, and effectiveness. He represents an organization that has been in the struggle a long time, and he's been very articulate. It's my joy to welcome to the platform at this time the president of the National Urban League, Mark Morial.
No justice, no justice, no justice. I know that the rain is coming, and in that spirit, I am going to try to set the tone to be as brief as possible. More than 50 years ago, our forefathers and foremothers gathered on this mall to set forth, under Dr. King's leadership, a vision for the future of this nation. Just 4 years ago, we gathered here on this mall to celebrate the 50th anniversary of that march. When we did it, it was a joyous day. We had present with us the first African-American president in the history of the United States. 4 years later, we face an uncertain and unknown future. We must send the strongest possible message today that just because an election has taken place, it does not change what we believe in, what we stand for, and what our vision for this nation is. Our vision for this nation as civil rights leaders and human rights leaders combined is a vision of an America without hate. It's a vision of an America with economic opportunity for all. It's a vision for America with properly funded public schools that educate every child. It's a vision for America where health care is not a privilege but a right. It's a vision for America that says whether you are black or white or Hispanic or Asian or Native or gay or straight or man or woman, this nation is your nation. This is our nation. Now there's been this great call to make America great. We say today, make America great for everyone. Make America great for the locked out and the left out. Make America great for the child down in Alabama seeking to become a great person. Make America great for the young man in the Bronx, for the young woman in Chicago. Make America great for everyone. So let us say that today is the beginning. We will be part of this new movement for resistance in America. What we resist is any effort to turn back the hands of time. For this generation, this is a moment not of comfort, not of convenience, but a moment of challenge, a moment of controversy. Where do we stand? We must stand and say loudly, we will not be moved.
Thanks, Mark. One of our partners who's been sustaining partners across the years has been the NAACP. And we're happy to have the president of the NAACP, Dr. Carlton Brooks, as he comes to give a word to us today.
Good morning. Good morning. I want to ask that if there's anyone here who appreciates the leadership of the Reverend Al Sharpton and the National Action Network, I want you to put your hands together loud, long, and resoundingly. Because this is a brother who's gone to jail for his people, who stood up for his people, who stood by his people. Put your hands together for the Reverend Al Sharpton. On behalf of the leadership and membership of the NAACP, I'm reminded that on this morning it is cold and rainy, and there are some who believe that we're frozen in apathy. But I want to remind our opponents that our hearts are warm with courage, warm with conviction, warm with conscience, warm with determination, warm with resolve, warm with the prophetic spirit. We're not giving up. We're not giving in. We're not giving over. We're going to stand and stand and stand for our rights. The late Supreme Court Justice Harry Blackmun said a chill wind blows all across this republic. There's a chill wind that blows. A chill wind of fear for women who heard a president, or rather a candidate for the presidency, talk in the most vulgar terms about grabbing a woman's genitalia. And the fear is that this is not campaign rhetoric, but the promise of an administration reality. This is a campaign in which we saw racism regularized, homophobia routinized, xenophobia made the order of the day. It's a campaign in which we heard over and over and over again our people being marginalized, our people being otherized, the handicapped and the disabled being made fun of. It is a campaign in which many of us felt disrespected. Unless we miss the point, in recent hours, in recent days, we heard the president-elect refer to an icon of the civil rights movement who came precariously or perilously close to becoming a martyr of the civil rights movement by the name of Reverend and Representative John Lewis. The president-elect said that he was all talk and no action. Disrespected. We had members of the Congressional Black Caucus invited and summoned to testify before the House Judiciary Committee, relegated to being last. No questions asked. And as one representative put it, they were asked to enter through the back door. Disrespected. Unless we miss the point. A senior senator from the state of South Carolina, a state from which I hail, referred to the NAACP as a partisan organization because we gave him a failing grade. Well, let me say to Representative Lindsey Graham, if you get an F from the NAACP, it is because you failed on civil rights and you failed on America. So if you want to improve your grade and you're in need of remedial education, I simply ask that you stand with NAN, you stand with the NAACP, you stand with these brothers and sisters who yet stand for this country. And so we're here on the eve of this holiday and on the eve of the inauguration of Donald J. Trump. And there are those who want us to come and celebrate the holiday. But may I remind you that the holiday is not a holiday from social justice. It is a Sabbath for social justice. May I remind you that when you look across this country, you see millennial activists who are putting their hearts, their minds, their bodies on the line, and they're yet declaring with their whole being, in the words of Shakespeare, now is the winter of our discontent. They're saying with their minds, with their mouths, that black lives matter. They understand that black lives matter is the ethical predicate to the moral conclusion that all lives matter. Unless the first is true, the second can never be true. So we're putting this administration on notice. We're not going to allow you to take away our voting rights. We're not going to allow you to overpopulate jails and prisons while underpopulating and depopulating our homes and our communities. We're going to stand up for our rights. We're putting the administration on notice that we're going to the Hill. We're going to these congressional offices on the Hill and then back home, and we're going to tell them you have to stand for policies that bring this era of mass incarceration to an end. You're going to stand for policies that strengthen the Voting Rights Act. You're going to stand for policies that allow our people to go to college instead of going to jail. You're going to stand for policies that protect our young people. You're going to stand for policies such that we don't have to have so many mothers standing behind this podium crying for their sons and daughters. I'm going to leave you with this parable about the perilous state that we are in. A man by the name of Medgar Evers came home at the end of a long day, and it was his practice to disembark his car on the passenger side because of known assassins. But he got out of his car on the driver's side because he was tired. When he got out of the car, an assassin fired bullets into his body, bullets into his legacy. As he lay dying, his dying words were these: sit me up and turn me loose. If Medgar said on his dying and then on his deathbed, sit me up and turn me loose, we yet say, stand up and turn us loose. And for the folks who think we're frozen in apathy, cynicism, and pessimism, we yet remind you, we're here marching in the cold, we're here marching in the rain, we're here marching in the midst of this winter of discontent, and we say to you, we will march until hell freezes over, and when it does, we will march on the ice. Stand up and fight. Stand up and fight. Stand up and fight. Stand up and fight. Stand up and fight.
We continue with our partners in civil rights. We want to welcome our sister, Janet McGreer, who is the president of the National Council of La Raza, to come and share with us at the time. Let's give her some love as she comes.
Thank you so much. It is an honor to be here today on hallowed ground in the shadow of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s memorial. Someone who had a dream that spoke to everyone. It was a universal dream. Dr. King was not only a civil rights icon, he was a great American and a patriot. He so cherished the values and ideals on which our great country was founded that he spent his life working to make sure our nation lived up to the values and ideals for all Americans. We too, as we gather here today, are patriots and believe deeply in this country, its ideals and institutions. So we have a message for President-elect Trump as we gather looking for that dream still to be realized. We expect you, Mr. President-elect, to be the president for all Americans, not just the ones who voted for you. We expect you to stop targeting our community as you did through your campaign. If not, you can expect us to stand up and protect and defend our communities at every turn. And you can expect all of us here today to be united. Brown brothers and sisters, black brothers and sisters, yellow brothers and sisters, red brothers and sisters, all of us protecting and defending the American ideals that we revered with every fiber of our being. So if this administration tries to further compromise the right to vote, we will protect and defend our constitutional right. If they try to roll back our voting rights, we will stand up and protect and defend our country, our civil rights. If they try to roll back marriage equality, we will protect and defend our LGBT brothers and sisters. If they try to put the Islamic community in a registry, we will protect and defend our Muslim brothers and sisters. If they try to repeal the Affordable Care Act, we will protect and defend health care for the millions of Americans who need it. And if this administration tries to end a program that Barack Obama stood up for, that protected young people who came to this country through no fault of their own and who are Americans in every way, are dreamers. If he comes after those who have been living in the shadows and does not provide an opportunity, we will protect those who are the dreamers and want to be aspiring Americans. Protecting and defending all of us will not be easy, but if we are together, united in our cause, we will be unstoppable. Are you ready? Are you ready? We will be unstoppable. Onward. Thank you so much.
I need you to know that each one of you is important. Your being here is sending a message to the nation.
I want to thank the Reverend Al Sharpton and the National Action Network for inviting me here today to bring a message from the over 1 million Color of Change members, black folks and our allies of every race who will stand up and fight back against this administration. But I want to tell you all something, that it's not just fighting back against this administration, because they will get their power from the enablers across society, from the media who send us fake news or use false equivalencies, from corporations who recognize that this is an opportunity to buy out and take back what we have won and fought for generations, to the Democrats who may not have a backbone in this moment but will need our votes 2 years and 4 years from now, to the Republicans who think that they can govern without our votes. Our work has to be across so many different sectors. And let me tell you that I've got this quote on my wall, both at home and my office. And it's something that I carry with me, and it's, I think, apropos for today as we stand out in this rain. It's a quote from Frederick Douglass, the great abolitionist, that says, "There is no progress without a struggle. Those who profess freedom yet deprecate agitation, they want fields without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. These next several years will make all of us uncomfortable, and if we do not stand up and stand together, stand in solidarity with our Muslim brothers and sisters, our immigrant brothers and sisters, LGBT folks and women across many different sectors, because in fact, black folks are part of all those communities as well. And we've got to use technology and new tools and invite young people into these conversations in a new way. I am coming off an election that was incredibly disappointing. While at the same time as Color of Change has stood with Black Lives Matter activists, with civil rights activists in communities around the country in the aftermath of police violence, standing up and trying to translate the presence of these issues into the power to change the rules, we also faced down into local elections and challenged some district attorneys who did not value black lives. We picked 7 elections through our political action committees, and we won 5 of them, kicking out, along with local partners, district attorneys in places like Orlando and Tampa, in places like Houston and Chicago. This is the work that we have to do, not just at the national level, but at the local level, to tell people that you will respect us, you will respect our rights, and we will change the rules, not just the rules of culture, but the rules of policy. And we must do this work together until justice is real. Thank you all very much.
What do you say? Back together again? Not without us. We built this mother. We're not going back. And our children sure have already let us know they're not going back. And so I'm going to ask you again, are you ready for the fight? All right. So, couple of things. Some issues that we really need to stay on top of. We know, we've heard it already, but there's nothing wrong with repeating it. We know that we got our sisters here that have buried sons, and our sisters and our brothers and our daughters and our sons. They're counting on us not to be scared, y'all. We know folks gonna come at us, but my God, the God I serve, He's there with me. He's on high, Reverend, and He's gonna make sure that don't be scared. He got our back. So do you believe it? So, and sisters, women, power of our vote. We gave Sister Hillary Clinton 94% of our vote. Unfortunately, our white sisters didn't follow suit. They gave the other man 53% of our vote. But we're going to stand in solidarity anyhow, because they'll figure it out by and by. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Are you ready for the fight? Peace and power. Thank you.
700,000 federal and D.C. government workers are ready for the fight. Ready for the fight. We're going to keep delivering Social Security checks. We're going to keep taking care of veterans. We're going to keep seeing that people have fair housing. And we are going to stand up to an administration that pushes back. I can promise you that. Hey, brothers and sisters, the theme of this rally, we shall not be moved. What a way to honor Dr. King. Brothers and sisters, it's time that we do not allow the labor movement to be moved back in this country. It's time that we stop eroding of labor rights of public employees in states, cities, and counties, and the federal government. Dr. King did not view civil rights, voting rights, and union rights as 3 ABC columns. He viewed them as one right, the right of the people, brothers and sisters. I make a promise to you today. I make a promise to Reverend Al Sharpton and the National Action Network. AFGE and the labor movement are going to be out there. We are going to be joined at the hip every day of our lives. We are going to fight because, brothers and sisters, the American labor movement and the American Federation of Government Employees shall not be moved. Not now, not ever. And anybody that tries to do it to us, we're opening up one gigantic can of whoop ass on every one of them. Thank you.
Count it all joy to be here with you on this rainy afternoon. And I'm so glad that Reverend Al did not stop this, because this gives us just a little taste of what our ancestors had to endure. Now, we got troubles, but we don't have middle passage troubles. We got troubles, but we don't have selling your mama, your kids, and your daddy on the block type trouble. This moment reminds me of a spiritual song in the African American tradition, How I Got Over. My soul looks back and wonders how I got over. Now, sisters and brothers, we know we got over by the blood, the sweat, and the tears of sheroes and heroes, some whose names we know and some whose names we do not know. But I will tell you something, we have been here before. Now, the only difference is we got some company, Rev. We got our gay, lesbian sisters and brothers with us this time. We got our Hispanic, Asian, Native American sisters and brothers with us this time. I think Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King said we may not have gotten here on the same ship, but we are in the same boat right now. We have been here before. And I know that you might be disappointed, but I want you to take solace in these words. We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. The valley may be lower, but we've been here before. The mountain might be higher, but we've been here before. Because our mission for social justice and economic justice and political justice, and oh, by the way, sisters, we want our whole damn dollar. Say whole damn dollar. You see, the mission is so high, we can't get over it. And the mission is so low, we can't get under it. And the mission is so wide, we can't get around it. We might be disappointed, but we have been here before. And as sure as there's a God in heaven, he is stronger and more powerful than any man. We cannot forget where we have come from. So, sisters and brothers, I want to leave you with these three things. Number one, the creator of this great universe has given us two hands. One to reach forward and one to reach back, lifting as we climb. Number two, and most importantly, we can't ask other folks to do more for us than we are willing to do for ourselves. And lastly, in the words of my grandmother, who was hailed from the South, born in 1913, Grandma could not read or write, but she could count her money. She kept her money in the Southern Ladies Bank and Trust with a handkerchief. Y'all know what I'm saying. When I asked Grandma, what does it take to be successful in life? She said, all you need are the three bones: the wishbone, the jawbone, and the backbone. She said the wishbone will keep you hoping and praying because hope is the motivator, but the dream is the driver. The jawbone will give you courage to speak truth to power. But the most important bone of them all, the superfragilitarianistic expialidocious bone, hey, it's the backbone, because it will keep you standing through your trials and tribulations. And guess what, sisters and brothers? We can't have a testimony without a test. And we are being tested right now. Well, whether or not we got courage enough, hope enough, fight enough, love enough to do what is necessary. Hallelujah, somebody.
Be here today at this magnificent and incredible and powerful march of conscience for people from around this country. All of the great leaders who are here today, Brooks and Morial and Campbell and Turner and Rashad Robinson, but especially the Reverend Dr. Professor Bishop Alfred Sharpton. Give him the love that he deserves. We are about to witness the first toddler presidency. Belligerent, bellicose, and bullying. A man who is unmolested by enlightenment. A man who is addicted to the United States of amnesia because he has refused to study his history. He is here in a moment of incredible importance, and yet he lacks the gravitas and the study and the scholarship and the erudition and the insight and the courage and the heart to bear witness to the truth. He has put in place of our government a baronocracy. Tycoons who are billionaires and multimillionaires who are without competence. Just because you got a bunch of money don't mean you know what you're doing. Pockets on swole, brain on empty. The reality is we've got a president-elect who is unconscious of the deep and profound waters that have washed over our lives. And so we are here to remind him that we will not be moved. We ain't going back. And all of this incompetence, don't ever again say you are against so-called preferential treatment and the worst meaning of affirmative action. We have got the most incompetent, incapable people putting in place to run the government, mostly white men and some white women and a brother. That's the soft bigotry of bro expectations. But the reality is that we must dig deep. We must remember that we are all in this together. Gay and straight and lesbian and transgendered and bisexual, Christian and Muslim, black and white. We are told that this is the revenge of the white working class. I love the white working class, but there's a black working class and a brown working class and a yellow and a red working class. We are all in this together. And what we must tell our white brothers and sisters is that you got to learn from us as well. Don't be hoodwinked and snookered by investing in white supremacy and the unconscious reflex of bigotry. You've got to push beyond that to understand we are all in this together. I'll end by saying this. I got a new book coming out called Tears We Cannot Stop, a sermon to white America. And I try to say to my white brothers and sisters, disinvest in your innocence. Disinvest in your amnesia. Disinvest in your fragility. And learn that you and I must struggle together. I'll end by saying this. There was a mouse once looking through the crack of the wall. And he saw the farm people, the mother and father, the wife and husband, get a package. He said, what's in that package? It must be some new food. And when they opened it up, it was a mouse trap. The mouse ran back to the barnyard and told the chicken, they got a mouse trap out there. Chicken said, that ain't got nothing to do with me. Went on to the pig and said, there's a mouse trap they got. The pig said, I'll be praying for you, but that ain't my concern. Went up to the cow and said, there's a mouse trap back there. The cow said, holler at me later, that ain't my problem. And then later on, the mouse went back to the house. And then he heard a big noise and the mouse trap caught something. And in the dark, he couldn't see what it was. It turned out to be a venomous snake. And the wife saw the snake by the tail and went into it, and the snake bit her. Her husband rushed her to the doctor. The doctor tried to help her, sent her back home, but she had a fever. What's the best thing for a fever? Chicken soup. And so the farmer went out there and killed the chicken and made the soup. She didn't get better. So he said, I need to help her some more. She needs some more food. So he went out there and slaughtered the pig. And then she died and didn't get any better. And so at the repast, he needed some food. so he killed the cow. Next time they tell you it's a mousetrap out there and it's not your issue because you ain't gay or you ain't black or you ain't white or you ain't poor. It is you. The mousetrap is for everybody. The mousetrap is for the entire barnyard. All of us are in this together. Peace.
Keep on walking.
Everyone be quiet, everybody. Listen. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Oh, like a tree planted by the water. Say, we shall not be moved. Black and white together. Shall not be moved. Black and white together. We shall not be moved. Oh, like a tree that's planted by the water. Say, we shall not be moved. One more time. Black and white together. We shall not be moved. Black and white together. Shall not be moved. Oh, like a tree planted by the water. Planted by the water. Say, we shall not be moved. Like a tree planted by the water. We shall not be moved. Like a tree that's planted by the water.
We will continue to fight the power that seems to never cease. For as long as we have no justice, they shall have no peace. No justice, no justice, no justice. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause to the chairman of the board of the National Action Network, the Reverend Dr. Franklin Richardson. W. Franklin Richardson, give him a round of applause. And to the leader of the hour who brought us all here, the president of the National Action Network, the Reverend Al Sharpton, give him a round of applause. It is appropriate that we would be here on Dr. King's birthday. We often ask ourselves, what would Jesus do? But what would Martin Luther King do? Our movement didn't end because people were tired. Our movement continues. The only thing that stopped Dr. King was what the FBI did. The same thing that they're doing today. We must oppose the Attorney General Jeff Sessions, as many have said. We must stand up for our rights, and we must do exactly as Dr. King would have us do on his birthday. We have several other distinguished speakers to bring forward to you. First and foremost, please welcome a very active brother. You see him often representing the people of New York from the city council. And this is important because we all need to start thinking about running for office ourselves at a local level. Can't just come out and start running for president. This brother sets the example. You make a difference on city councils. You make an
attempt to intimidate and frighten elderly black voters. We will not forget history. We will lift up the words and the legacy of Coretta Scott King and continue to stand in opposition of Mr. Jeff Sessions to serve as Attorney General of the United States. No justice, no peace. Thank you.
Let's hear it again for Kristen Clark. Now, our brother giving deference to the Queen, we want to bring him back now. Attorney, the Vice President.
Check your captains and everything. The buses are here. We're ready to go. We're ready to fight. We're ready to stand. God bless you. No justice. No peace. No peace.